have the distinct privilege to have with me this morning Connor Meek, who is an unaffiliated candidate for mayor of Baltimore City. Connor, thanks for joining me, and I look forward to our conversation today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I've read all about you in the Baltimore Sun. I've read about you and WBL TV, Channel 11, and Connor, I would be remiss to say if we didn't start out with you're a really interesting guy, and in many ways. And I think that as our conversation unfolds today, people are going to learn more about you, why you decided to run, what was the impetus behind your decision to run for such an important office, not only within Maryland itself, but in a greater context as Baltimore being one of our nation's one of our largest cities. And so let's just start out talking about you specifically. You, Connor Meek, you are a Baltimore City resident. Were you born and raised in Baltimore City?
No, I was born in New Jersey. I moved to Baltimore in 2010. I finished college and moved up to Vermont for a year, and that wasn't working out. And I'd spent time here when I was a child. Being from New Jersey, this is that weekend sort of place, and you have family down here. My dad actually had some extended family down here, so this is kind of a place that I spent time throughout my life, and it was a place that I wanted to try and make my home.
Right. So you moved in 2010 to Baltimore City, and what part of Baltimore City did you move to?
I moved to, first, I was in Vermont, and I basically found a guy on Craigslist without looking at the place or anything. I just said, okay, I'll take it for a little while. So I came down and lived for just a couple weeks out in Windsor Hills, and then so that there was some complications there with. I was kind of like renting a room from somebody that may or may not have had the authority to rent me a room, kind of what I'm saying. So that got complicated, so I wanted to just get my own thing. So I had a place in Federal Hill for a couple months, and I kind of had so I had a place in Federal Hill for a couple months, and I had a medical emergency one-time sort of thing. I had a seizure, honestly, and I wouldn't say that they kicked me out or anything, but it was rough. I didn't know the people I was living with that well, and they kind of thought, I should be with somebody that, they were encouraging me, move back home with your parents or something. And when I didn't really consider that. I ended up moving in with another friend of mine, like a friend that I've known for a long time, who also lived in Federal Hill. So I stayed down there for a year, and then I moved up to, I wanted my own place, and I moved up to 22nd and Maryland, kind of up in bottom of Charles Village. Was there for a while, and then I moved to Mount Vernon for a little bit, and then I wanted to buy a house and kind of make it official and stop paying rent. So I bought a house out in Glens Falls in southwest Baltimore, and that's where I'm at right now.
So do you have any family inside Baltimore City now?
No, I probably have family that I've never met on my dad's side up in Parkville.
So, Connor, I've seen a picture of you, and you look very young. I'm 29. You look like a young guy. How old are you, Connor?
I'll be 28 in 2 weeks.
Okay, that's incredible. And I'm not too familiar with Baltimore City.
Is it incredible?
It is.
There are a lot of people that are going to be 28 in 2 weeks.
yeah. I'll be 30 in November, and it's kind of intimidating. It's an intimidating time in my life.
Well, it's why wait to get into these things? Why not give it a shot? Imagine if you're doing what you're doing right now at 29, you probably got into politics a whole lot younger than I was, right?
I got involved in politics or on the political side probably. I was about 18, and I wasn't interested in politics growing up at all. It never fazed me. But then when I registered to vote, I got involved and said, well, this is my country, and I want to make it better. I want to make it a better place. And so I started to be active in politics, and since then it's been a whirlwind of different opportunities. But we're here today to talk about you. So You're 28 years old, and almost 20. So you're 27, and you've never held elected office before. You've never ran before. This is your first time, your first foray into the public the public political side.
That's correct. I'm shooting for the moon here.
Yeah, you certainly are. And you've had an interesting background story, and I've read an article that you've written in the Baltimore Sun, and it's entitled "No Computer with a Question Mark, No Baltimore Job." And I'm just going to read a little bit of an excerpt from your piece, and it was posted on August 21st, 2015, in the Baltimore Sun newspaper, and it starts out. And you write, recently I visited the recruitment office of Baltimore City's Department of Human Resources, seeing it as a possible solution to my current unemployment. The office is housed in a corner office on the first floor of a beautiful building at Baltimore and Calvert Streets. The words recruitment office are visible from the street, printed in caps on the plate glass windows. As I entered, I was cordially greeted by the receptionist, and I stated my purpose, to drop off my resume, fill out an application, or speak to someone about available opportunities. I was handed a small slip of paper containing a web address and informed politely that the job application process must begin online and that the Department of Human Resources Recruitment Office does not take resumes or applications in person. Connor, you, from reading this, so you're currently unemployed. Let's talk about that. What
I am in between opportunities, but yeah, I'm unemployed. You know, I'm looking for something, but I'm also, you know, running for mayor seems like it's going to be a full-time job. And another thing about my whole lifestyle is that I don't really need a lot of money. So right now, I would love a job working 20 hours a week taking care of some dogs or something. You know, like I would love something that I could do and relax and think and spend my time and my effort on this. You know, and just be able to pay my bills at the same time. You know.
Oh, I totally understand. It's a tough economy out there. And what type of work were you involved with before you now that you're in between jobs? What type of work were you involved with?
You know, I've done a lot of things. From in Baltimore, I worked at Barks for a little while, which was good, and it's an incredible place that I encourage people to support. That's the Baltimore area Baltimore Animal Rescue and Care Center. But it was also a very difficult job. You can imagine, that with like the city animal shelter. It was all. It's something tough. But I tried to, I'm entrepreneurial, but I tried to, I tried my hardest to kind of start a little business. I realized that a lot of cities have pedicabs, bicycle taxis, and Baltimore didn't really have them for some reason. And when I was living up in Burlington, I actually knew a guy that had one, and I rode around a little bit. It was fun. So I tried to do that. But the license, I knew I was never going to make $1 million doing that, but I bought one of them. Bought one of them on eBay, and ran up to New York and got it and tried my best. And I knew I wasn't going to make a ton of money, but it was okay. You try to get by, but it was impossible to get. It was really hard to get. This is another problem that I have with the city. I tried to get licensing for this, and I tried to do it right. And I go into the office and ask them, and they basically told me that they don't offer licenses for this sort of thing, which, it's just it makes it hard to make anything legitimate when they don't offer licenses. And then at the same time, there's one police officer that liked to hassle me a lot about what I was doing, which is understandable to a degree. But what isn't understandable is that then I went to Charm City Pedal Mill, which is kind of like this big. It's kind of like a big bicycle taxi where there's like 12 people that pedal. It's like a group thing. But I went to them and asked them about their license, and they showed it to me. So It was like, what, so to actually get the information, I had to go back there and give them the name of a company that had the license.
Right. And I,
like we understand why that's completely absurd, right? I mean, like that's, we're making things hard on us.
And I'm reading down your article and on the Baltimore Sun's website, and you said that It bothers me that the only government agency I found in the city of Baltimore with a walk-in application process is the Baltimore Police Department, where you take the first step towards your new career by walking into the police recruitment unit on Tuesdays at 12:30 p.m. and 6 o'clock p.m. and sitting down for a simple multiple-choice test. And you wrote parenthetically, yes, I've taken it. So tell me about that. You've taken the Baltimore City.
Well, yeah, I will tell you about that. And I first want to say that, I was a little concerned about how I phrased that paragraph because I don't want the police department or anybody to think that I'm discouraging that. I encourage that. And I also don't want the city to think that that means they're just hiring anybody. Of course there's an additional vetting process. There's plenty of there's a long part of, I started at the very front of the process, and there's more to it. But if we're in such need of, if we can do that for police officers, we can do that for custodians. Especially if we have a recruitment office that people can walk in. It was just a comparison that I think was relevant. But I did take the test. I want to say I took it in late March or early April. I honestly, when I took that test, I may have signed something saying that I'm not really going to discuss the contents of the test, so I'm not going to. I don't remember. I may have, though.
Okay.
But I'm just going to say, it wasn't impossible, and if you want to be a Baltimore police officer and you think you can, walk in, take the test, and the physical exam, although the physical exam, the physical fitness test was actually canceled due to unrest, so I wasn't able to attend, which is one of the reasons why, obviously it was a strange time to decide to be a Baltimore police officer. I don't think anybody can really blame me for abandoning that at that particular time, because it was a crazy time. It's like I'll be completely honest with you. That was also part. I'm looking for a job. I'm putting myself out there and see what I can do. But if I'm not qualified to be the mayor, I am not qualified to be a police officer. I weigh 150 pounds. I'm a pacifist. I don't like guns. I don't have I don't have what it takes to see the things that they see. Like we see them, and sometimes in Baltimore at least you see them sitting around and you kind of think, oh, they're gold bricking or whatever, and some may, but we can't deny the fact that they're responding to all the horrible things that I'm not even going to mention on your show. And I can't do that.
So I want to go back. I want to go back to your letter that you wrote to the Baltimore Sun. And by the way, it was very well written and it was comprehensive. And I believe that your overall point of your letter to the editor to the Sun was that the application process itself is convoluted and complicated, and you sort of lament the process. And you wrote in the second to last paragraph, it all points to a larger problem. Our officials have lost touch. They are too removed from ordinary citizens and are no longer perceptive to the needs of the many. The rift is something that we experience every day in the police us versus them mentality, the lack of transparency and government, and the absurd bureaucratic policies we come up against. What exactly are we paying for? So what are we paying for, Connor?
So, that's something we all need to be asking ourselves and asking our government, but I will point out that article was written several weeks before I even had written and submitted before I had the notion to run, and the timing actually just kind of lined up. I didn't really expect this. I don't know, but so we made a late edit for that last two paragraphs to kind of tie everything in and show that this is just one of the many reasons I have that we just shouldn't be satisfied with what we're getting right now.
Yeah, you wrote in the last paragraph. And to tie all this together in a nicely, tightly wrapped bow, but it's one thing to complain about the city's problems, and it's another to take action. It turns out that the Baltimore City Election Board takes applications in person. So I went right over, and you wrote, as of Wednesday, I'm an unaffiliated candidate for mayor. And I thought your last paragraph was exceptionally clever in that how you tied all that together. And so now you're a candidate. You're an unaffiliated candidate for mayor, and you're not aligned with any particular political party. And I want to ask you a few questions about your politics, because it's definitely a partisan office, but unaffiliated. I'm assuming that it's more like an independent. Am I correct?
Yes, sure. And can I say something before we get
Sure,
into
please.
any real questions about my politics? There's a very sound argument why I shouldn't be mayor, which is that, I'm inexperienced and I'm young and so I know these things. And that doesn't, just because something is hard doesn't mean you should try. Life is a learning process, and I have the time right now, and I'm young, and I decided to put myself out there, but I know that I know that I'm not perfect, but I'm very interested in criticism because I have, if you can learn quickly, a year is enough time to learn a lot of things, so I'm interested in hearing criticism, and if you're going to ask me right now about my politics, my policies, of course I encourage that, but I might say something, I might put my foot in my mouth, I might say something that doesn't really make a lot of sense, and if any of your listeners catch anything, my email is cvt@gmail.com, and I want to hear from you because I need to learn. I'm not, you know what I'm saying?
I think that we're at a point in our politique, especially as it's been proven over and over that people are interested in straight talk. They're uninterested in political correctness. They want people to give them an unvarnished truth and to offer them real substance instead of tiptoeing around the issues. So I think, Connor, this show that I host, it's a platform. It's in a forum for you to express your thoughts and feelings freely. And, of course, I encourage anyone who is listening to contact you and to ask you more questions about your platform and get involved with the process itself. So I encourage you, Connor, speak as freely as you wish, and that's what it's all about. Is we're doing this interview so the people of the city of Baltimore and even around Maryland, they can learn more about you and who you are and what you stand for. And I think this is a great start.
Well, and I think I agree with you, but I don't want it to be who I am and what I stand for. That's not exactly what I want. What I'm trying to do right now, what I'm trying to do right now is encourage a real conversation with the citizens of Baltimore. And I'm going to get my signatures and I'm going to get on the ballot, and you're going to have the option to vote for me. But we don't have a candidate that we like very much right now, apparently. So while we look for one, I'm going to put myself up there and encourage this conversation so that if you find someone that you love, encourage them to be an unaffiliated candidate, and then hopefully we can almost hand them a platform that we've already been working on for months. You know what I'm saying? Like this. So this, it really doesn't have to be about me because I don't necessarily expect to be elected. And if I'm elected, God, I'm going to give it my best, and I'm going to serve, and I'm going to spend the next year pretending as if I know I'm going to be elected. I'm going to prepare for everything. But we just need to encourage this conversation about what is wrong, because there are certainly things that are wrong that we need to talk about.
Sure, and I absolutely agree with that. And we'll get into some of the substance here in a few moments. But the current mayor, Stephanie Rollins Blake, has received a lot of criticism, not only for her actions in the aftermath of the Baltimore City riots, and I want to talk a lot about that, especially that's front and center in many Baltimore City residents' minds. But I want to go back to ask you, you're as an unaffiliated person, you don't align with the Republican Party or the Democratic Party. Do you have policies that reflect both parties, or do you lean a certain way? Because you mentioned earlier in the conversation that you don't like guns. Is that something you want to talk about?
Sure. I mean, I have policies that reflect myself, a 27-year-old guy in West Baltimore, and also at this point, a week into my campaign here, my policies also may reflect 2 or 3 dozen people that I've heard from.
Right.
So I'm hoping that 3 months from now, my policies will reflect 15,000 people or 20,000 people that I've heard from. And I also want to point out that right now, all of this that I'm having is on the internet, and I realize that that's hypocritical of me, and I am definitely, it's hard to reach all those other people, but don't think that I'm not working on it right now. I'm thinking about how to reach those people. I want to come up with a platform, and I'm going to release it online because that's a place to release it, but that's, that's not the only, we have to get it out to everybody so that whether or not they like me, they can at least have some sort of input,
I do.
But I'm sorry if I didn't answer your question.
Well, maybe we could. I'd like to see if we could muster up an answer that. So, as an unaffiliated, have you voted? Have you voted for Democrats and Republicans in the past?
I probably haven't voted for Republicans in the past because I'm young and most of my voting has kind of been in the city. I don't think I voted for Republicans in the past.
Okay.
But you asked me about guns. So I personally do not like guns. I've fired guns. I don't, but I personally am one person. So like I definitely think that we need to get these illegal guns off the street, and it has to be, we have to deal with crime. But if people have guns in a legal way and use them in a responsible way, I'm not going to take that away from them. I don't agree with them. I honestly think we don't need them, but that's not something that I feel like I should take from people who have them and use them reasonably.
Do you believe that Baltimore City election should be nonpartisan?
That's what I'm trying to do, because it kind of is nonpartisan already. Like last election, Stony Rose Blake got like 40,000 votes, and the Republican got like 5,000.
Yeah.
It is nonpartisan, but I figure instead of having it be nonpartisan and have someone try and represent the city, but also adhere to the policies of a party or any sort of donors or financial backers or any sort of thing like that, we can have it be nonpartisan, and it's a Democrat facing off a guy that hasn't taken money from anybody, just kind of doing this because he cares, and only wants you to vote for him if you want to. I'm never going to beg anyone to vote for me because I want you to make your own decision. And you might, it's important to get in. It's important to get on the ballot because this is going to be a strange election. And honestly, some of the people that don't like me right now, depending on how the Democratic primary goes, they might be my biggest. They might be saying like, it's crazy, but we need a Hail Mary pass here, and Connor Meek's in the end zone, and we know he can't catch, but we can't. We got to do something because we're in trouble. We need more candidates. So
let's talk a little bit about the. Go ahead.
I'm hoping that I'm also hoping that more candidates join the field. I really am.
Right.
I want these people. I want people to respond to me and look at me and say, "Who the heck is this kid?" I'm so people that can do that and also have the support to get the signatures. Please do so. I will read every policy you have.
You're only going to be in the general election only. So regardless of who becomes the Democratic nominee, or if there's a Republican who runs, you're going to be in the general election, and people in the city of Baltimore are going to have the option to vote for you. And so
if I can get signatures, yeah.
How many signatures are? I didn't know you had to get signatures.
Yeah, I'm a petition candidate, so I have to get about 1% of the voting population, which is about 4,000 people. But they say that they throw out a lot of signatures, so I'm aiming for 8,000, which is going to be, it's going to be a task. It's not going to be easy. Especially because I don't really, like I said, I don't really want to ask anyone to vote for me. So it's hard to ask. Like I'm trying to ask somebody, sign my petition to get me on the ballot, but then make your own decision. It's like I don't have a good pitch. If anybody has a real good way to get that out in one sentence, please email me.
I understand. I didn't realize that in the city of Baltimore, as an unaffiliated candidate, that you were required to get those signatures. So that's going to be a strategy in and of itself. Have you already started to collect and gather signatures from neighbors, residents, friends, and
yes.
Baltimore City residents?
I've started, and then any Baltimore City resident, only Baltimore City residents should do it, but you can get, they kind of have the PDF of the signature of the petition online. And if you want to be your own kind of circulator, and I do not want anybody walking around knocking on anybody's doors, interrupting dinner or anything like that, but if you print one out, sign it, and then have 4 friends that want to sign it or whatever, I'll come pick it up in person and talk to you a little bit and see what your thoughts are. These signatures are good because it's an extra way to interact with people for someone who doesn't want to spend any money, take any money, or really focus on the internet in any real way,
I understand. Baltimore City has been in Democratic control for many, many years now. and you have candidates like Stephanie Rollins Blake, who will be on the ballot, former Mayor Sheila Dixon. Then you have another young gentleman that is running. His name is Calvin Young and Matt Clifton, and they're all Democrats. And let's talk a little bit about some of your potential opponents here.
I just want to say I kind of wish I don't know anything about Calvin Young, except for that he is a young man, Harvard degree. I kind of know the area and where he lives, and that's basically it. But I think he probably would have gotten a real response if he had gone on as an unaffiliated. And I don't mean to say that like he didn't get a real response, but I'm saying I feel like if he had gone on as an unaffiliated before I had done it myself, my ears would have been open to anything he had to say. I would have been very interested in him.
Yeah, he's definitely an interesting candidate. In fact, I'm going to try to get him on as well and talk to him and ask him a few questions about the city, just like we're talking now. So, even as a Democrat, my ears are still open. If he has anything to say to me, I'd love to talk to him. Yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that all the candidates will meet at some point throughout the city in their campaign adventures. But how are you getting your message out? I haven't found a website. I haven't found you on social media. What's your strategy for promulgating your message to the public and helping people to learn more about you?
So I have a strategy that most people say won't work, but I don't like. I love the internet for the information. I don't like the amount of time that collectively Americans spend on it. So that also goes for Facebook, which is I had a Facebook in college. I deleted it. I don't like it. I don't have a Twitter. You're never going to see a Facebook. You're never going to see a website because it's like you can talk all you want about improving the community on the internet, and there are messages that need to get out there, and if people can do that effectively, I encourage them to do so. I am going to do things in other ways. If people want to make a Facebook for the campaign and run it themselves, I don't know, but I don't like to spend a lot of time on social media. So, the way I'm going to get my message out, like I said, is, I'm actually, I have some support right now, and I'm planning on actually going around and talking to those people. I'm also putting out my email address to, at any opportunity I want. I don't know, any opportunity I can. Like I said, I need to get more in touch with people that don't have computer access, but I do. I volunteer at a community center where they have a computer lab in West Baltimore for people that don't have, they do a lot of things there, but it's also not an appropriate place to be. You know what I'm saying? It's a place it should be politics free, I think, in my mind. So I encourage donations to clay pots, but I don't want to be, so I do have a connection with, a lot of different demographics, but I have things to learn. I have to definitely get back out there and get the message, but get the message to them. But the other way, my real strategy is already been implemented. Like the Sun has printed several articles of mine without my having to pay anything, and instead of coming out and saying, my name is Connor Meek, I want you to vote for me because I'm going to say, because I'm going to do this, and this. Instead of saying, hey, I wrote this thing, here's a problem, and I'd like to talk about it. So I figure by the time November comes around, hopefully there are 15 articles, and instead of saying, what are your policies, you can say, okay, what has made this guy mad in the past year? Here, and here's all this evidence, so you can see kind of who I am. And I also want to write articles, with more input from the citizens, maybe citizens that don't feel that they could write a compelling article but still have something to say. And then the other thing is, I think campaign finance, it may be necessary to some degree, but I feel like we waste a whole lot of money, and campaign advertisements don't say a whole lot, and I don't really like lawn signs all that much. It's your lawn, you can do what you want. But I think, just the fact that I'm talking to you for an hour right now, and the fact that I've had a lot of interviews and that the Sun is printing things, is I'm trying to prove that campaign finance is not necessary entirely. A lot of things, the best things in life are free. You don't need to pay thousands of dollars for a commercial. You can just kind of be reasonable and open to communication, and people are going to want to talk to you. And I feel like that might be, there are some things that we can do with my campaign regardless of whether you support me for an actual mayoral candidate. I've already tried to, raise a little bit of money for a cause that, and I'm not taking donations myself. If you're interested, you can give them to them. But for one cause, but I'm open to listening to other people with notable causes that I could plug when I get the opportunity. But also, if we can run a campaign that's successful to any degree, that even puts up a fight on $0, we can also really be critical of all the money that they're spending. I'm hoping that that when all is said and done with this election, we can look at how much we spent collectively on campaigns, and look, and it'll be a lot less than it was during the last election. I really think that if we keep talking about that and keep sticking to that value of not spending any money, we could actually influence them. And then, the other thing, I also just, like I said, I think we should get another candidate out there. But then the other thing is, I'm going to create this platform, and I'm going to try my hardest to get the input from all of the citizens and change the platform. I'll change it every day. I'll change it every week. And even if you don't, I can step away from this. I can step away from it, and it can be just the city's platform that the city has input and the city can change. And if we really do truly get input from the majority of the citizens, or a lot of them, we can put that platform up against the platforms of any of the other candidates and tell them that this is really what we want. It's like this is what we want. So your platform should look a little bit more like this.
You're quoted in the Baltimore and WBAL TV, Channel 11, and you're quoted as saying, "My platform is based around these three values: communication, transparency, and accountability." And that's going to make it easy because I'm not going to be making my own platform. The citizens of Baltimore will be making my platform. I'm making myself the easiest person to get in touch with in the world. And so, three values: communication, transparency, and accountability. And let's start with communication. In the city of Baltimore, how can the city better communicate with its residents?
The city. Let's talk about the. The city it does okay, but people. We have to ask people who have tried to get in touch with the police, other than 911, about other matters, or people that have tried to get in touch with the city. Do you hear back? Let's hear it. How often do you hear back? Would you say they're good at communication? Because the article that I wrote about the recruitment office, I wrote that weeks ago, and I actually emailed Howard Libet, one of the the mayor's strategic director of planning and policy, and he actually called me back right away, and we talked for a little bit. We talked about this issue, and it was a great conversation. It made me feel good, and that was on July 31st, and he said he was going to follow up. And when things hadn't changed by August 20th or whatever, I told him, go ahead and run it, because we tried. I tried the right way. I tried to go and talk to the city. So, I know just from the experience that I've had in the past week, trying to, just doing anything that I know that communication is hard. It's hard to keep up with everybody, but I'm one person, and I think we can find a better way to allocate funds to kind of beef up a department that accepts communication and responds quickly to the city. So that there's an email that you're going to get a response to within a few days, and there's an office that you can walk in and just it's like a suggestions box. You know what I'm saying? So we need that because it's hard. It's hard, and if the city has something like that, please advertise it better. I don't know. They might have it, but I hear a lot of people complaining, and they should, if there is a place like that, there should be lines around the block. And with the transparency, like I've said, I am not perfect. I'm young. I'm inexperienced, and that's why I want people to see every single decision that I make. Because if like when the mayor sent out her pamphlet on the budget, it was okay, and I don't have it in front of me, but I remember reading it and going, I'm not getting a lot of information here. I remember just specifically thinking of one thing, which was like the police department. Looking at this thing, I can see that there's probably one of these that's the police department, like safer, reducing. But there are actually like three categories that were so vague that I could probably fit the complete. It was like, you kind of know what I'm saying. It was not definitive enough to really know what the money was. It was kind of vague categories. So that information might have been. It probably is more widely available somewhere else, but I would do my best to get it to people without them really having to ask for it, because what I want is those random, like that mechanic that's looking at this long, accounting sheet and going like, what are they spending all this money for on tires or whatever, like collectively we have so much information. There's so many experts that can look at the finances of the city and pick that one particular thing, like the landscaper or whatever, who would look at this and say, this is wrong. So it seems like what we kind of, instead what we kind of do is we elect someone, and then we just kind of criticize them. But we have to we just have to open up lines of communication, and transparency is a part of that. And then the other thing is, accountability. Like, I'm not a perfect person, and I'm gonna slip up. I'm gonna make mistakes, and if I'm making these decisions on my own, then I can be held accountable, and that's fine. And I think, it would be we could almost make a real culture change if we could somehow work out a way to make out all these decisions on our own, because when we're going to share the successes, and we're going to, stick together through the rough spots, but we're going to really feel like we're being heard as a true democracy, instead of living in a city and the election's coming up and it's going to be it's a Democrat or whatever. It's Baltimore. This is how we make these decisions, and if you don't like it, there are other places to make these decisions this way. And I think so. That is a completely idealistic and crazy thought, but it's the way that I feel like there's just too much hostility in our government. We have to get together.
Well, I want to talk about you wrote an article and an opinion piece and it was printed on July the 6th of this year, and it was said, and you start out by writing, on June 15th, I was mugged for the first time in my life for a bicycle with about zero resale value and shoddy brakes. I was accosted by a group of about 15 youths on the Gwynn Falls Trail and escaped unscathed. Mine is a bicycle. Traumatic, yes, but it could have been worse. Let's talk about that incident and how it propelled you to where you are today, running for the Baltimore City mayor. Connor, will you talk about that incident?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't want to get into the details of the incident. I was riding my bike, having a nice time. Got it's in there. I got kind of accosted by a bunch of kids. They took my bike. I just had trouble with the police response. I called 911. I didn't wait for a million years, but I probably, in a situation like that, who knows how long that I waited. But I remember being on hold and also having a conversation with somebody sitting next to me for a few seconds. Like there was another couple that had just been attacked. But it was just, and then I just walked to the police station. When I got on 911, I told them that the kids were basically going to spill out next to the police station. I kind of expected there to be a response, and I got there and there wasn't. Had trouble getting in, but basically there was the close sign on the door. So that was really, really the issue there. And that has definitely influenced. I mean, that's completely. But before running for mayor, as soon as that article was published and received some support, it changed my life forever, for better. I'm a different person, which means I'm still hold me accountable for anything I did before then. But I'm a better person, and
You wrote that you dialed.
I'm not even going to say that I didn't do anything really. I was a good person before then, but now I am being as civically involved as I possibly can, and it's really because of that. Because I wrote the letter, we got the response, they changed the policy.
Right.
When Vance got fired the next day, that was a long time coming. It might have gotten sped up by this, but that was something else. But they changed the policy, and that really meant something. It really meant something, and at that time, I was really encouraging people to build on that and say, like right now they're listening to us, we brought so I know there are other people out there that not only had seen the sign, but that's over, but had also have something else that they're standing in front of them and looking at it and going, this is completely ridiculous.
Well, let's talk about your interaction with the police. You wrote in your letter to the editor. I want to go into that because it sounds like, and from what my understanding is, that part of your interaction with the police helped to spur a policy change, and it also helped to make up your mind and decide to run for Baltimore City mayor. You wrote that you dialed 911 after you were accosted and your bike was stolen, and you were on hold for an unacceptable amount of time, and you graded the dispatcher, who you said would receive a D- for her knowledge of the city's geography, and you walked north along the trail in the direction of the Southwestern District Police Station. You arrived there, and a brash young officer opened it, and while chomping obnoxiously on a wad of gum and barring my entrance with his arm, he curtly informed you that the police station was closed from 7 p.m. until 7 a.m. Connor, what time were you out riding your bike?
The incident happened at 8:15, and also, and we're talking about criticisms. The Sun article is limited to 750 words or so, but so you can't fit all in. But we're talking about criticisms, and we have to be specific. So I want to be specific about why that dispatcher got a D-. It's because I called and told her that I was on the Gwynn Falls Trail, and she wasn't really able to do anything. She needed an address.
Okay.
I said I'm on a bike trail, but she needed an address. So I kind of said, I'm on a bike trail. I don't have an address. It's not like 3500 Gwynns Falls Trail. It's a bike trail. So I described to her it's a bike trail. It's near this golf course. It's between Wilkins and Washington. But it just was, I think dispatchers should know about the bike trails, and they should know where the parks are, and they should have that information. So I think that the address that I actually ended up having to give her an address to get a response, and I think I ended up giving her the address of like the corner of Hurley and Wilkins, which was actually it was a mile, or it was probably almost a mile from where the incident actually took place, but it was right where I expected, or exactly where the kids would have poured out of the bike trail. I gave them the address of the end of the bike trail, right next to the police department, where the kids that had just taken my bike were gonna come out. So I mean, for somebody to tell you, to tell a 911 dispatcher that you're on the bike trail and have her, need an address is absurd, because people, a lot of the critics, oh, it's a bike, boo-hoo, be quiet. But it's like, just imagine your spouse, your loved one, is having a heart attack, and you got this dispatcher asking what your address is, and you're on a train. That's a problem.
So what was the outcome of your visit with the police station? Did they take the report and follow up with you? Did you ever find your bike, or what was the process, and how was it resolved?
Well, that's a funny story. So this happened on July 15th, so this happened, mid-July, and so I had these problems. They did eventually take the report, but I had to go down they drove me down to the Southern District because they said that I wasn't in the correct district. But I've looked at district maps, and I feel like I was. I'm no expert, but I've looked at the district maps, and I feel like I described. I think that was incorrect. And I encourage people to research that for themselves. But so I went down to the Southern District. Eventually, but yes, I was able to make my report, but I wasn't exactly thrilled with my treatment down there either. It wasn't anything horrible, but exactly, I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, I was asking that, how was this situation resolved? Did they take a police report?
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so they took that report on the 15th, right? And right. I didn't hear anything. And then on the 6th, the article was printed, July 6th, the article was printed in The Sun. And on July 7th, a reporter from The Sun was at my house for an interview, and the police department called me on July 7th. So 3 weeks after the bike was stolen, but one day after the newspaper article came out, and told me that they were assembling some sort of task force to search for my bike. And that's basically that story. So there was a response the day after the article was published, and assembling a task force for worthless bike that was stolen 3 weeks ago is a little. I don't even want to say they assembled a task force for my bike. They kind of have a task force working on it or whatever, but the response was obviously a day late and a dollar short there.
Yeah, so I read a follow-up in the city paper that the police officer that was part of your op-ed about getting mugged, Michael Whitmer. Have you read this follow-up, Connor?
Yeah, I actually wrote part of the follow-up. There's an email in there for me.
Yeah, so can you tell us a little bit about? Could you respond? I guess on this program, what is your response to the police officer?
Basically what he came out and said, and you feel bad for him because he wasn't a horrible guy, but what I see is going out on Facebook and saying that is inappropriate, and I think it's a guy lashing out in frustration almost, which is not a great policy for a police detective. I think it's clear to almost everybody in the police department that what he did he shouldn't have done. I mean, just going out and making any sort of comment on Facebook at it at all, especially without having made any police response to me. So, the problem was he basically came out and said, I explained to you why the district was, I explained to you why we were sending you to a different police station. So if you didn't like it, you could have, said something then. And he's completely ignoring the fact that, I'm the only civilian in a closed police station, in a police station that has been known, a police department that's controversial. So I'm not saying I was worried or anything like that, but you have to respect the fact that some people, if they're in a closed police station, might not fight back the way they should on some things. You're kind of in the clubhouse here. You gotta tread lightly, because that's what's a shame is that whole real fraternal nature of the department kind of it's kind of like a rift between us. But anyway, so the problem was he said that I should, or he said, I'm sending you. I told you why I was sending you somewhere else, and then he also said, and what were you doing out there anyway? It was, it was dark. You're riding your bike, all that sort of stuff, and it was. There were people playing golf when that happened. It was 8:15 in the middle of June. It doesn't go to, it was still light out, and so that was, that was the problem, and the other problem was that when that was discovered on his Facebook page by a reporter on, a city paper, they also took screenshots of a lot of those memes or whatever, those little
Right.
pictures that you have on your Facebook page. So there were a lot of those, and I won't say that any of them were like, I can't think of the most horrific one, but they were all just like, come on, like this is offensive. These are all offensive to a degree, and you're a police officer. And some of these were posted like after Freddie Gray, like what are you doing here? Come on, you should have better sense than that. And one of them was a picture. It looked like a picture of a little souvenir skull and crossbones, like you get, but it's a skull and crossbones like you hang on your wall, and it says, the beatings will continue until morale improves. And then underneath he wrote, BPD motto with a bunch of exclamation points. So, even, and some people come back and said, oh, that's, that's like an internal thing, like how they train themselves or whatever. But no matter what, you have to, as a police detective of 8 years, you have to realize that putting that out on your Facebook is one of the stupidest things you could do right now. Like, why would you do that, He put that out after Freddie Gray. So it's like, so that's the problem. So I can't even say that he's a horrible detective, although he, could learn a little bit more about when the sun sets at night, I suppose.
Yeah, well, in the city paper article, you had written, or you had said that you'd been a victim before in Baltimore, and you've had 5 bicycles stolen in 5 years residence, and that you sort of stopped reporting it, and you've always purchased $50 to $100 bicycles because you're not going to have them for long, and you said, and I figured pre-Freddie Gray, these police are busy. I'm not going to tie them up with the stolen bike. I've been trying to talk about anything but the stolen bike.
Yeah, and when I say, I didn't want to tie them up with a stolen bike, I have to point out that all those other bikes that were stolen were broken or cut locks or something like that. It was a crime, but it wasn't a violent crime. So it was like, they're going to take the report. They're not, nothing's really going to happen. Let's just let it be. The reason I brought this one up is because I was, it was a group, it was a completely different situation. So all those other bikes, they got stolen, but it's a bike. It's over. But it is definitely, we have to recognize we have to be honest with the way we feel. And I've never been, and I'm still not an anti-police person. I'm pro-police, but you react to your stimuli. And before this, I didn't really think of the Baltimore police as being that horrible. And I also will admit that I wasn't read up on any history or anything like that. I was just basing it on the things that I had experienced in my life. It wasn't really anything bad. But then with this Freddie Gray thing, it's such a huge deal that this happened that it gives us such a shift in our perception and our emotions that like that's hard to overcome. And then when we're seeing this little sign in the back of the van, it's like, come on, I'm trying to like the police, help me out,
This is a very general question I'm going to ask you, and as we're approaching the end of our hour, I want to ask you specifically about the Freddie Gray situation, and this is a generalized question, and then in future interviews, Connor, I'd like to go deeper into it, but let's talk about that. What is your opinion of the situation that unfolded, and subsequently the Baltimore City riots, and if you were mayor at the time, how would you have handled this differently, and what would you have done to work with police and to ensure that something like this never happens again?
So that's definitely a good question. So the first part was That was a multifaceted general question. But yeah, so Freddie Gray. My opinion on that is that probably the same as everybody's opinion on that. What happened right there was an absolute crime and an atrocity, and that man should still be alive. And the reason that we're talking about Freddie Gray is because he got, that has been going. Not we haven't been, like that sort of thing happens. Like it's been happening. So we have to stop that from happening, because that sort of thing happening, it causes a lot of this. It does not do anything for our community nature. You know what I'm saying? We need to be working together. So with what unfolded there, I'm glad that you're asking me this when I've had time to, I've had time to think about it a little bit, because I see it from both sides. It's so complicated that you'd be naive to only see it from one. I want to say these rioters are bad, they're criminals, they're doing all this sort of stuff, they shouldn't be doing it, and that is true. Not that they're criminals, but this isn't the right way to affect a change. It may have been effective in some way, but we can do a better job. And you can't hold it against them, because you and I are not them, and we don't know.
Right.
We don't know what it's like to have lived their life, and they're only responding to the way that they've lived their life,
Right.
and what we've. So that's kind of like the same with those two. Marissa Janae Johnson and Mara Williford, when they jumped up on Bernie Sanders' speech a couple weeks ago, I was so disgusted immediately. And after a couple days, I still think it was wrong, but I am trying to understand. I recognize the fact that they aren't me, and they have reasons for doing what they're doing. And like the delivery was wrong, but I can't hold it. I don't dislike them. Like they're trying their own way. And I kind of feel the same.
Do you believe the riots were justified, or do you believe that it was an unfortunate reaction to a very tough situation?
It was a very unfortunate, in some ways justifiable reaction to a very tough situation.
Yeah.
It was a long time coming. It was very intense, and we could have done a better job of handling it. So that kind of gets back to the last question. The problem that we have with the mayor in a lot of ways is the way that she handled this, and I'm not a huge fan, but I can't, that she was in the hot seat and it was tough. And that's also part of the communication thing. We're talking about a lot of the police complaints here are about kind of a lack of communication, or that there wasn't really clear communication, or that they weren't really given what they needed. And a lot of the community, it's tough to swallow that, give them room to destroy sound bites. So, it's complicated. So, I would have, if I was the mayor, I would have given the police what they needed to enforce the law. I would have given them what they needed to enforce the law, and have given them instructions to enforce the letter of the law, but I also would have done everything that I can to give as much space and as much room and support for peaceful protest, because that's the best answer I got. But like I said, I'm 27. That's what I got. It's hard, and I want to hear input. I want to hear what anybody that has a better answer than that. I'm not saying that you don't. I'm saying that I urge you to email me.
Yeah, the Baltimore City residents are going to measure you as a candidate on your responses to these types of questions, and they're going to ask you about your leadership style and how you're going to differentiate yourself. And obviously, you weren't in charge at that time when the Baltimore City riots occurred, and when Freddie Gray was taken into custody by police and was subsequently died while in police possession.
No.
Nonetheless, the question that I want to ask you is, looking at all the variables that all the funds, and you look at the mayor's performance, Stephanie Rollins Blake, how would you grade her performance, and how would you assess her leadership during a time of crisis when they literally declared a state of emergency inside of the city of Baltimore and had the Maryland National Guard's troops come in and reinforce the peace and the social order within the city.
In my mind, her two failures were in my mind, the two things that she should have done better were, and like I said, I'm sorry, but you need to encourage communication and input from the city that's about to criticize you, no matter which decision you make. And then, you have to make the decision. You have to be accountable for it. You have to stand up for what you did, and if it was wrong, you have to apologize and hope that they'll move on. But there has to be a little more accountability. We have to stand by our decisions. And I want to point out that I don't have a car, but I happened to be driving a car the day that the unrest kind of broke out on Friday by Camden Yards, and I got stuck right in the front of that, right in front of that traffic, right in it. So after a while, I got out of the car, and I went and I stood right on the front line, not as a protester, or just as an observer, just to see what was going on. And I stood right where the police line met the protesters. And when I left that day, I was on the side of. When I left that day, I had a lot of sympathy for the police because I saw very stoic, they stood there with their eyes and ears open and just took the onslaught of abuse and hatred. And I hope a lot of them did that and were able to do that because they understood that, and that might be completely false, but I'm hoping some of them understood that wasn't coming from nowhere. It was because of the abuse and because of the neglect and just because of the fact that a lot of young black people in the city don't feel like they don't have any support, So that's how I felt when I left. And, it's hard not to get wrapped up in individual statements, and some of the individual statements made to, some of the black police officers, it's like, that's why delivery is important, because when you're shouting and yelling, it's easy to pick out the bad things you say,
Right.
But when I left that day and really thought about it for a few days, I completely understand I haven't experienced it. I don't completely understand the hatred, but I do sympathize. Whether or not whoever's fault it is, it's clear evidence that we need to be doing a better job.
Part of your platform is enhancing communication. Do you believe that communication could be overhauled, and the way that police and the way that many of the communities within the city of Baltimore, specifically the African American community, who has shown a real distrust towards the police because of many of these incidents that have unfolded, that have led to a divide between community and the police. Do you believe, as mayor, should you be elected by the people of the city of Baltimore, that you can bridge together police and many of these communities that have expressed distrust? And do you believe that we can move forward and start to rebuild and build a coalition of between police and the community? And do you believe we can stop this I guess aggression between both sides? Because I've seen a lot of it, and I've done another show about this, and it's sort of like, man, there's really, really angry people, and they have a reason to be angry, and you also have the police, and it's created such a wedge, Connor. And do you believe that your leadership can bridge that divide?
I would say, set any degrees or lack of them aside, if there is any qualification I have to be mayor, it's that I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, and that would be the focus, because we can nitpick little issues here and there, which is fine, but we can't ignore the fact that we are not a happy city. We're an angry city, and that's because we don't communicate.
Right.
Anything can be solved with a nice communication. We might walk away from that communication, that discussion, still on opposite sides. But let's put it this way: I went recently to the public safety forum that the mayor and Commissioner Kevin Davis were having around the city, and they were okay. Kevin Davis, the good mayor, did okay, but regardless of whether or not they had all the right answers, I gave them tremendous credit for coming into this room, and it was basically just the two of them sitting at a table in front of the room with 150 people in it, and they had no idea what they were going to ask. And that is hard. I found on Reddit that that is hard. So you have to give them that credit, and I have to hope, I'm sure they've had these before, public safety forums in the past, but I have to hope that they're going to do more of them in an attempt to do exactly just that, communication. Because, it's like, where would you go? Where do you go if you have a question about the police department? Like, let's say you want to, Kevin Davis has said that he wants to measure the heart of officers as they're coming in. So if you just want to say, I want to know what Kevin Davis is doing, what progress he's made on that initiative, who do you ask that? You don't walk into your station, you don't call 911, you don't call 311. Kevin Davis has made his email address available, so you can get in touch with him, I suppose. But my answer is that, that the police department has a media relations department, and the media relations department's got a strange title, but when you read, and I could be misinterpreting something, but when you read their mission on their website, it says that they are basically the sole contact for timely information regarding crimes or various other issues for the media and the general public. So to me, the general public is me. So if I send an email to the media relations department, they should be able to get back to me. I'm not saying that I've been firing off all these emails that they haven't been getting or they haven't been responding to. What I am saying is, on that same website, it says that the media relations department is made up of like 7 people. So when something crazy happens, that means that my email and your email, and I'm getting caught up with all those emails from every news outlet in the world that is investigating our police department. So
I want to ask you a question specific to the police department, and that is,
sure.
Would you have fired the chief of police had you been mayor?
Yes.
You would have fired him?
Yeah, I probably would have fired him earlier than she had.
And do you think that he was a distraction throughout this ordeal, and do you believe that part of his actions contributed to further unrest?
I mean, he may have been a distraction. I didn't pay much attention to him, but I would say he was not effectual. I mean, I don't know. Look at our city and tell me, the guy on and it's forget the distraction. I'm just looking at the evidence in the neighborhoods that I pass through every day, and I think we could be doing a better job. So why, it I think it should be easier to lose your job if it's an important job, and that includes the mayor. If I get up there and you don't like me, kick me out.
So as we wrap up this, and Connor, I want to invite you back because I think you're a really interesting guy, and I think that you and I we should definitely talk further about some policy. And I want to help people within the Baltimore City community to learn as much as possible and to be informed when they go to the voting polls next year and decide on who to choose as their new leader. And so, but for now, I want to wrap up this conversation, and I'd like to offer you the opportunity to offer a few final thoughts.
I'd say my final thought is just, our city is made of individuals, and it's only going to be improved through individual effort. So, our world would be perfect if every person at the end of the day could go to bed proud of the things that they've done that day. And we do have disagreements, and it might not, we have to be better people. Because we talk about it a lot, but we also litter, and we drink and drive, and we, neglect our children, and we neglect our neighbors, and we do a lot of things that we shouldn't do while we criticize our elected officials for doing whatever it is they're trying to do. We need to take this down to an individual level and be better people.
Well, I appreciate that. Connor Meek, an unaffiliated candidate for the mayor of the city of Baltimore. Connor, where can people get in touch with you to learn more?
So my email address is cmeekvt@gmail.com. I'm not going to throw my address out there, but it is available on the internet if you'd like to write me a letter. And I also hope to see, I don't like to ask for signatures. So I'm out in the city every day, all the time. If you see me, I'll have a backpack and I'll have petitions in the back. So approach me, and I don't want to bother people, but you will never bother me if you ask me a question or tell me some advice or anything. I need advice. Give it to me, please. So I'll be out at the farmers markets. I'll be out at the baseball games or whatever. If you see me, come and introduce yourself.
All right. Well, Connor, I hope you decide to come back, and I hope we can continue our conversation, and we can help Baltimore City learn more about their candidates. So I want to thank you for joining me today and taking up your time and to do this important conversation. So, Connor, thank you, and please come back again soon.
Anytime.
All right. Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you.